Sunday Roundtable is ready to go, and joining us this morning, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Lizzie Guyton. It's great to see you guys. Josh Kraft sat in the chair. What do you think? Marianne, let me start with you.
Well, it's his first introduction to a really political audience, and it comes in a week where you had Michelle Wu on a national stage and Josh Kraft here, and I think it's an opportunity for the first time for voters to compare them. We haven't had that chance to do that. I mean, if you're following the race, he didn't break any news here today. It was all of the same things. He talked about affordability, listening to people, et cetera, et cetera. So he got all that out there, but now people have a framework to really compare the two of them as the campaign goes on.
Lizzie, what's your view?
And I think there's two jobs for Josh Kraft right now. One is introducing himself as a candidate for mayor and an alternative to the Wu administration. And the second is being really crisp on why he's a better option. So what are Wu's vulnerabilities that he's going to capitalize on? She has plenty. She has not come through on her promises for rent control. Boston is at the bottom of the list for affordable housing. So there are things that he could be talking about. Even, I agree with Marianne, the mayor did a great job at the hearing this week, but even on immigration, there were some things that were not talked about there that could be opportunities for him to jump in and offer an alternative.
He says he could work with the Trump administration, maybe in a different way that Mayor Wu could. What do you think about that?
It's interesting to be in a Democratic primary and talk about being collaborative with the Trump administration. I think it would be best for him to focus on some of the other broader issues, the kitchen table issues that people are really focused on.
To your point, the first things out of his mouth were rent control and the cost of housing. So, yeah, to your point, he's aware of that, I would imagine.
All right. Mayor Wu stood up to the pressure of a congressional hearing last week, defending Boston and fighting back against Trump's border czar, Tom Homan.
Let's talk about Tom Homan. Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath and let's ask him some questions.
So this was a different Mayor Wu than we've seen, certainly here in Boston. You know, how could this impact her bid for re-election, Marianne?
Well, Michelle Wu, I think, is often underestimated, and once again, she put her doubters, embarrassed them. I mean, that was one of the best rebuttals I've ever seen in any committee hearing ever, and the only thing better than that was her opening statement, where she pretty much won at that point, talking about Boston, the low crime rate, the low murder rate, the great things about Boston, the values, all the titles we've won, and most of them have immigrants on the teams. So she had this one at the end of that opening speech, and that was even the reference to David Ortiz's line about this is our city at the end of it, the Boston Marathon. So she knocked it out of the park, and by doing so, it made it harder for Josh Kraft this week in this race, because what we don't know is it is unlikely there'll be another opportunity like this one, the national stage, to compare her.
She really did forcefully push back, and that was it was fascinating to watch. And that was just one moment. There were many moments, and I think that I've seen posted on her social media.
Yeah, the mayor was polished and professional, and she did a good job at the hearing. On the topic of immigration, there are really two things. One that the hearing kind of missed on, and that is, since January, we've seen a lot of violent convicted criminals removed from our cities, and it begs a question from people: why is there not cooperation from local law enforcement to remove these people from our communities with convictions, not solely based on immigration status? And the second point is, on the topic of immigration, it's not just a public safety issue. It's a housing issue. There's also concern from voters that there's putting a burden on our school system. So when immigration writ large, are there other topics that Kraft can find vulnerabilities to keep it in the conversation?
Do you think Republicans scored any points at that with Mayor Wu?
No, I mean, they clearly were looking for the moment that was going to go viral. They never got it, and they never let the facts get in the way of a good story, but they did not have a good story during that hearing.
What do you think?
I think they missed that common sense moment to actually try to hold some of these elected officials accountable for places they could actually be finding places to remove dangerous people from communities, not just these political large topics about sanctuary cities.
That requires changing the law.
Next item. In an address to a joint session of Congress last week, President Trump went full MAGA to a divided chamber. Republicans were on their feet. Democrats mostly sat in their hands. Post-Trump's speech and the back and forth tariffs rattled financial markets. Even some Republicans are pushing back on DOGE. Lizzie, is this a moment in history, or how is this going to play out here?
Well, according to CBS, 76% of viewers approved of his speech. And he was talking about some common sense things. He's talking about keeping our streets safe. He's talking about the economy. He's talking about border security and immigration control. These are a lot of common sense issues and reasons that Trump earned votes in the general election. Meanwhile, the Democrats are sitting on their hands. I mean, they're not participating for any of the bipartisan issues. Laken Riley talking about, none of the Democrats voted the night before in the Senate for the women's in sports bill. So there's still an incredible divide in Congress, and the general public seemed to think that Trump had a pretty good speech.
Marianne, is that a bad look for Democrats?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Donald Trump. This was a campaign rally speech, and I'm saying that as somebody who watched literally every one of them, and the only thing they didn't do was play YMCA at the end, which is how he always ends his rally speeches. That should have happened. But what he really was doing is he tells the entire country, I am destroying the United States of America. First, we're going to do it by cutting all these jobs. And as we speak, more people have lost jobs. It is the same number of people as during the 2009 Great Recession. And he's done that in 7 weeks. That doesn't count what he's doing to democracy and everything else. So everyone should be on alert. We are in deep trouble.
We continue on the record. Stay with us.